One day in Hamburg, the biggest news magazine there, biggest in Europe, Der Spiegel, had invited a young chess player to play a practice game and do a giant interview with them, a title page interview. And he came to Hamburg, and they asked him what he wanted to do on his free day, and he said, I have a friend here, I want to visit him. His name is Frederic Friedel. And they knew me, and they said, what? How come you know him? He sent me some computer games. And then one day there was a ring at my door, and this young man stepped in and said, hi, I'm Garry Kasparov. You're Frederic? Hi. And this is your wife, Ingrid? Yes. And this is your son, Martin, and your son, Tommy? Great. And it's a nice house here, a nice garden. Okay, now we're friends. Tell me all you know about computers. So I sat there with him for days on end, telling him what computers can do and showing him. And there are pictures of this happening. And he kept telling me what computers should do for chess players. And in 80% of the time, I would say, yes, yes, of course they can. And in 20% of the time, I said, no, of course not. Can't do that. And so we designed a sort of a basic idea to create a database. And the magazine Der Spiegel immediately published the story. Friedel and Kasparov are planning to build a database of computers. Now, after that, people had read about this, and every crackpot in Germany contacted me and said, we can build it, or we have built it, and so on. And I actually traveled across the country to see a few of them and realized their main goal was to get to know Kasparov. And so I thought, no, I can't program. I'm not a programmer. I can't write it myself. And then one day a young man came to me, very shyly handed me a diskette and said, would you take a look at this? And I took it home. It ran on an Atari ST. The Atari ST was a completely new and very powerful computer, very beautiful computer. And I had one at home, and I ran it, and I said, oh my goodness, this is a database. It wasn't complete or anything, but you could enter moves, you could store the games, you could load a game, you could replay it and everything. So I called this young man whose name was Matthias, and I said, can you come with me to Basel in Switzerland to show it to someone? He said, to whom? I said, to Garry Kasparov, who is now world champion. And Matthias, I think, fainted at the other end of the line. And he came to Basel by hitchhiking there, and we sat in my room, we put up a computer, we prepared everything, and after his game against Tony Miles, he was playing a match. He came out, he was tired. I said, Garry, come, I want to show you something. And he said, Fred, I'm tired, leave me alone. I said, no, take a look at this. And then he came into the room, he looked at Matthias, he was very suspicious. He doesn't like to meet new people immediately after a game. But I forced him to sit down and watch, and then he watched. And Matthias showed him, you see, you can load a game, and then you can replay it like this, and then you can load the next game, and you can search for this, and so on. Garry, just completely silent, just looked at it, and then he was sitting on my bed, and then he tossed himself back, and he was lying there with his eyes closed. And Matthias looked at me, alarmed. He said, okay, this is probably boring for him. He's telling us, go away, this is nonsense. Suddenly he jumped up and he said, this is the most important development in chess study since Gutenberg. This is like someone landing on the moon. He plans what he says. He knows this is going to be quoted all over. So he was lying there thinking of a good line to react. And he took Matthias and me aside and he said, you guys have to make this database. You must build it. You must develop it. He actually took his letter paper and signed 10 pages for me. And he said, write letters in my name, to companies to support you and so on. And which is quite remarkable because at the time he had a fairly substantial monopoly on chess information. You know, he had four or five people working for him and collecting games and sorting them and scanning them and so on. And all the other players in the world had to slog it out all by themselves. And he was encouraging us to develop something that gave everyone access to the information. So I still admire him for doing this. And he's one of my most loyal friends in chess, because for 10 years he supported us. He did advertising. We could use his picture. He would prepare for games and he would call journalists to watch him using ChessBase. He would tell everyone, it is because of ChessBase that I can play simultaneous clock symbols against national teams. How do you do that? He said, I use ChessBase and I study their games in advance. And this all helped our company tremendously. Of course, we had to pay him, which was 0.00 German marks at the time. And he did all of this for free. And why? Because Fred is family, you know. You don't take money from your uncle or your cousin or whatever. So I'm still very grateful to him. And then in 1986 we launched ChessBase at last.
So we can say that Garry Kasparov was one of the biggest inspirations for the launch of ChessBase.
He was absolutely central in the development of the program. And as I said, admirably so, because he was giving everyone access to the information. And today, if you want exactly the same tools and capacity of the world champion, you have to go out and spend 200 or 300 euros, and then you're absolutely equal to Anand or Carlsen or whatever. You don't have any disadvantage.